Hey everybody, Miss Deb here, coming to you from my home office here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So come on in, come sit with me a spell. I'd love for you to listen to what I'm about to talk about. So I have been challenged to create a video talking about a challenge that I have faced in life and how I've overcome it or how I have learned to deal with it. Now, I don't know if you know, but I have suffered from panic attacks and anxiety for most of my life, since the age of 13, and I'm now in my 60s. And it is said that children who have a traumatic childhood a lot of times end up with panic disorder. Well, listen, I did have some pretty traumatic things happen to me in childhood, and as a result, I suffer from panic attacks. So what I'd like to do is have you listen while I just go through some of the traumatic experience I've had and how I've learned to deal with panic attacks. Now, as a young child, my parents didn't have a very good marriage. My father was a rather not so nice guy, and I saw him as a mean man, and I was afraid of him. He made me afraid of him. He made me afraid of a lot of things. I think he enjoyed scaring me, although I don't think he did it to purposely hurt me. I guess that was just his personality. So, anyways, I didn't like him. And I can remember as a young child, my parents would go down into the basement when they were arguing. I guess they thought my brother and I couldn't hear them upstairs, but I could hear them. And I would go stand at the top of the stairs and cry because I was so afraid that my dad was going to hurt my mother. Now, I remember one night in particular, my bedroom happened to be straight across the hallway from the bathroom. And my parents had been downstairs arguing. My mom came up and went into the bathroom. Well, my dad pushed the door open, pulled my mom up off the toilet, and I'm not sure, but I think the police came to our house that night. And back in the 1950s, the police really didn't come out for domestic violence. I could be wrong because you know what? It is also said that the brain will not allow you to remember things that are too traumatic. And I do think that that night was one of those incidents where it was so traumatic to me that I don't remember what else happened. Um, in grade school, there was one girl in my class who seemed to be in every class I had every year. And she bullied me all the way through grade school. I didn't have much confidence in myself. I was always the last one to be chosen for kickball or to be on your team for anything. And so I felt bad and I felt like a lot of people just didn't like me. I wasn't happy. Um, and in grade school also, I don't remember why I did this, but my brother and I would be on a different lunch hour. And when I went into the lunchroom, I would cry and say, I want my brother. And they would let my brother come in and sit with me and eat lunch. Of course, they didn't understand why I did this, and they only let my brother come in a few times. So, but that's another thing I did that I don't know why. And long about fourth grade, I started having what I called my funny feelings. And I would tell my mom I was sick. I didn't want to go to school, but she'd make me go to school and and say, well, listen, if you have a fever, you throw up, or something like that, they can call me and you can come home. So I'd go to school. I also remember that one of the moms in the neighborhood, a lot of times in the wintertime, um, her daughter happened to go to the Catholic school, which is across the street from my public school. And she would stop sometimes and see if some of us wanted to ride to school. And my neighbor friends would say to me, oh, Mrs. Bruce said you can't go. So I'd end up walking to school by myself again, feeling alone, feeling left out. Now, in grade school, there was one girl that seemed to be in my class almost every year. named Cindy. And she bullied me a lot through grade school. And back then, teachers didn't do anything about bullying. I guess they just felt like, hey, if you can't take it, too bad and so sad. So I was not very well liked in grade school. I was always the last one to be chosen for the kickball team or any other projects the kids were doing. But, anyways, when I went to middle school, Cindy and I actually went to two different middle schools. And I had gotten in with the popular kids at my middle school. And one day I had gone up to the bowling alley, and Laura was there bowling with the bully named Cindy. And Laura said to me, "Hey, Deb, you want to come bowl?" And Cindy looked at her and said, "You hang around with her?" Laura said, "Yeah, why?" So I went on ahead and bowled with them just to show Cindy that I was not the same bullied kid that she had bullied all the way through grade school. Now, in middle school, about halfway through the 8th grade is when I started to really have panic attacks. My first hour class was a math class. And when the teacher would shut the door, all of a sudden this horrible feeling would come over me like, I can't breathe. I'm going to die. I got to get out of here. A panic attack. And I would raise my hand and, say I was sick and went down to the office. Well, after me doing this a few times, they had me talk with the counselor at school. And I told her that, I just had these funny feelings, a feeling of not being real, and I don't know what it is, and I just can't stay in my class. And she said, okay, what I want you to do is sit here until you calm down, and then I want you to go back to your class. Well, I ended up coming to school every day and sitting in the counseling office all day long. And so, of course, after so many days, the school felt that I had been truant from school. So they recommended to my mom that I be placed in a home they had me go see a psychologist and stuff, but they had recommended that my mom place me in this home for emotionally disturbed children. Now, I was in no way, shape, or fashion emotionally disturbed, mentally ill, or anything like that. But all the other kids that were in this home did have either emotional problems or mental problems. And I stayed there behind locked doors for a year and a half. And the first 3 months that I was there, they call that the adjustment period. I was not allowed to talk to my mom or to see my mom. And again, that was very traumatic for me. And all I did was cry and tell them, I just want to go home. And I finally learned how to play their game. And after a year and a half, I was allowed to go back home. However, I had to come back to this center every day for school. Now, their school was such a joke. It was more like a daycare center. And so I didn't take a lot of the courses that are actually required to graduate from high school, although I did graduate. And in the 12th grade, I was allowed to go back to public school. And that was such a fun year for me. I enjoyed it so much. And then I started to date one of the boys that was in my English class towards the end of the year. And he was my first love. And long about June, I ended up getting pregnant. We were going to get married. However, he decided no, he didn't want to get married. He told me, I don't want to get married because I'm afraid I might divorce you and, that won't be nice. So he left. And again, back there, it was like 1970. It was still not the thing to do to keep your child if you weren't married. So, seeing how I was not married, my mom said, you have to put this child up for adoption. Now, I didn't want to do that, but I was forced to do it. And that was traumatic. I was very sad. And it took me a long time to get over that. And then in July, my mom went to the hospital and had a hysterectomy. And the doctor said she was fine. There was no cancer. Everything looked good. And she came home. Well, I got to tell you, she never really got fully recovered from that hysterectomy. And along about October, her legs started to swell so bad that she couldn't even go to work. She was a secretary at a insurance agency. And so she had a typewriter at home, and she was doing, typing up some of the things that they needed typed up. They'd bring her the work home. But one day, one of the insurance agents came to the house, and he started yelling at my mom. And this really bothered me. So I went next door and got the neighbor. She came over, told him what for, and told him to leave. Now, in December, my mom ended up going back into the hospital because they thought she needed her gallbladder taken out. Well, what they discovered was that my mom had cancer. And on New Year's Eve, 1972, I'll never forget it, my mom died from cancer. Now, because of my panic attacks, I was very dependent on my mom because I didn't drive or go out anywhere by myself. So I didn't know how in the world I was going to live without my mom. But I had to sell her house to pay off doctor bills and things like that, and it's a shame because she only owed $1,000 on her house. However, at the age of 20, I was just not mature enough and ready to be a homeowner, so I sold her house. It came down to where I had like 2 weeks left before I had to get out of my mom's house. And an old friend of mine named Deborah also had heard that my mom had passed away, and she came to see me. Well, to make a long story short, her parents, who are two very wonderful, loving people, allowed me to live in their house. They had had other kids come and live with them before. I wasn't the first. And I did have to work. I was a beautician, so I worked at a beauty salon with Deborah. She was a beautician too. And I had to pay rent, $25 a week. Ah! Look at that, $25 a week. Wouldn't that be nice in today's, today, $25 a week for rent. But anyways, I lived with her parents for 4 years till I was 24 and I got married. My husband and I had 2 children, a boy and a girl. And he had been in Vietnam before I actually ever knew him. And my sister-in-law told me later on that Greg was not the same person. He had really changed when he came back from Vietnam. And he started to become a pretty heavy drinker. He cheated on me all the time. And he became very verbally abusive towards me. Now, I still had my panic attacks, and I still had a fear of being home alone, especially at night. But I had to leave. I mean, there was just no other choice. I was very unhappy. It was not healthy for me, nor was it healthy for my kids to stay in this abusive marriage. So I came out here to Ann Arbor, Michigan, to a domestic violence shelter. And there, I received counseling from some counselors at U of M Hospital, and some real support from a couple of the ladies, and actually even the director of the domestic violence shelter. And they helped me to be able to get used to living alone with my children. Now you say, well, how did they do that? Well, 2 of the ladies from the domestic violence shelter allowed me to call them anytime, day or night, if I felt a panic attack coming on. And they would come over and sit with me for a while till I was able to relax and get past that panic attack. And then they would say to me, okay, Deb, I'm going home, but if you need me, you can call me. And you see, that's one thing that people with anxiety and panic attacks need to know. They need to know that they're not alone and that they're not bothering other people if they need to call them. Because I had a lot of friends that said, look, don't bother me, But people with panic attacks really do need that support. So if you know someone that suffers from panic attacks, be a supportive friend and help them out where you can. So, anyways, I got to where, I had my own apartment. I was raising my 2 children by myself, but I was on welfare. So I decided, after talking to some other girls that I knew that lived in the neighborhood, I decided I'd go to college. Now, I was a little fearful, no, a lot fearful, about walking around the campus. However, there was a women's resource center, and two of the ladies there were again very supportive and very helpful to me. They started up taking turns walking me to and from my classes. And then it got to the point where they would meet me halfway. So I knew they were coming, but I had to walk halfway to meet them. And finally, it got to the point where I could walk from class to class all over the whole campus without feeling any panic or anxiety. Now, I took some computer classes and ended up getting a job as a computer operator. Well, in Ann Arbor, which is such a wonderful place to live, they have so many services and so many things to enjoy. They have a service where if your doctor writes a letter showing that you have some sort of disability, you can use a cab and go anywhere in Ann Arbor for $1 one way. So I used this cab service to be able to get to work. And there was a few times where when I was in the cab, I felt nervous and almost wanted to turn around and go back home. So how did I deal with that anxious feeling? Well, what I did is I started carrying a glass of water, which for some reason seemed to soothe my fear of feeling I couldn't breathe. And I also took a piece of paper and a pencil with me, and I would draw, or I would write a letter, even though that letter was never going to go out to anybody, because what it did was allow me to take my mind off the anxious feeling and put my mind into that letter or into whatever I was drawing. Now, I'm no artist, but I drew little flowers and stuff, which were easy to draw. And then before I knew it, I was at work, and everything went very well for me. So let's see what happened now. Oh, another thing that I got support from. This was way back when I was married. No, well, actually, it was more recent. I had a problem going into the grocery store by myself. I had to have someone standing right next to me the whole time I was in the grocery store. So one of my friends decided, okay, Deb, this is enough of this. We're going to get you past this. So what she started off doing, she said, I'm going to go down to the end of the aisle. You start at the front. I want you to walk all the way down this aisle and see, whatever there is you need to get, put it in your grocery cart, and I'll meet you at the end of the aisle. And then she got to where she'd go around to the next aisle. And I'd do the same thing. I'd walk down that aisle by myself, knowing that my friend was in the next aisle. I wasn't alone. And she'd go from one aisle to two aisles to three aisles, or she got to where she said, okay, I'm going to sit at the front of the store, and you go ahead and get what you need. But if you need me, come back here. I'll be here. So that gave me that security and that confidence that I needed to be able to go through the grocery store. And now today, my boyfriend, he'll drop me off at the grocery store. And here's another thing that I use, because I still sometimes get a little panicky in the grocery store. However, I know my boyfriend's sitting out there in the truck. And thank God for cell phones. Because I tell myself, look, if you get panic feeling, you can call Johnny. He'll come in the store and rescue me. I'll be fine. So now I can go to the grocery store and walk through the whole grocery store by myself, knowing that I have that outlet, that Johnny's out in the truck, and I have my cell phone, and I can call him if I want to. So listen, I made this video hoping that if there is anybody out there that's suffering with panic attacks, maybe some of these tactics that I've used could help you to get past your panic attacks and start doing some of those things that you never thought you could do. I hope this video has been helpful to someone out there. And if it has, I'd love to hear from you. Contact me. Maybe we together can talk about different things to help different people and more people to get past their anxiety and how to deal with it. So for now, I want to thank you for sitting with me a spell, listening to what I had to say. And I wish you a stress and anxiety-free day or night. And I will see you again soon. Thanks so much for listening. Bye bye now.